On behalf of the community of Mayo Abbey, I would like to welcome you here today. Over the next 15 minutes, I would like you to sit back and experience the unique story of Mayo Abbey. Mayo Abbey lies in the area known as the Plains of Mayo, which derives its name from the ancient Irish word muyo, meaning plain of the yew trees. The first people to walk across the Plains of Mayo did so 9,000 years ago. They lived in small family groups, hunting wild animals and gathering berries and roots for a living. The first farmers arrived in Ireland about 5,000 years ago. In fertile areas like Mayo Abbey, they cleared small areas of woodland in order to plant grain and keep domestic animals. They lived a more settled life in bigger groups, and in Mayo, a number of tombs have been found to mark their passing. They were a well-organised people, and major monuments such as Newgrange demonstrated their understanding of the world around them. In later millennia, people who knew how to work metals came and improved the production of weapons and tools. More than 600 years before the birth of Christ, the Celts began arriving, following their long migration from the eastern parts of Europe. They were an enigmatic people with a rich spirituality, a rich culture and folklore, and a deep sense of family loyalty. On the other hand, they were known to the Romans as a notoriously fierce and quarrelsome people. Over time, Celtic ways and the Celtic language spread to the rest of the island and was adopted by the original peoples. The birth of the Irish people had begun. The Celtic way of life was to become well established on the island, as unlike other parts of Europe, no Roman legion stepped on Irish soil, nor Angle or Saxon came as invaders. Mayo Abbey has archaeological evidence of a large number of Celtic settlements. This area, in pre-Christian times, formed part of the kingdom known as Tír Neachtain. The tribe who inhabited this kingdom were the Curia. With the coming of St. Patrick and other missionaries, the conversion of the Irish took place. Many observers have remarked on the astonishing speed and the lack of violence which accompanied this turning to Christianity. In truth, the Celtic culture merged with Christianity, and both were enriched as a result. The story of the early Christian monastery at Mayo Abbey begins with St. Columcille, or Columba, the most prominent and influential Irish churchman of the early Christian period. Born in Gartan, County Donegal, he founded many important Irish monasteries, including those at Durrow, Kells, Derry, and most famously on Iona in western Scotland. According to tradition, he journeyed into exile there from Ireland in 563, reputedly following a dispute over his copying of a sacred book. From this island base, Columcille evangelised a large part of western Scotland. Over the succeeding decade, he founded more than 50 monasteries until his death on the 9th of June, 597. Following his death, the Columban Church continued to flourish, and with the foundation of Lindisfarne by St. Aidan in 635, spread its influence southwards into the ancient kingdom of Northumbria. In 597, the year of St. Columcille's death, the Roman Church was re-established at Canterbury by St. Augustine. St. Paulinus, one of his missionaries, became Bishop of York in 624 and began to evangelize Northumbria. Roman practice differed in many ways from that of the Celtic Columban Church, which had its roots in the early Irish Church, founded by, amongst others, St. Patrick 2 centuries earlier. The principal difference concerned the dating of Easter, the main Christian feast. These differences caused much controversy in the Kingdom of Northumbria. differences which reached new intensity with the appointment of Colman as Bishop of Lindisfarne in 661. A clash between the two traditions became inevitable. To settle the matter, the Northumbrian king Oswy convened the Synod of Whitby in 664. Colman presented the case for the Columban Church, but it was rejected. The outcome of the synod led to the complete collapse of the Columban influence on the Northumbrian Church and to the establishment of York and Canterbury as the main centres of English Christianity. This profound change was symbolised by the withdrawal from Lindisfarne to Iona of the entire Irish community, led by Colman. He was also accompanied by 30 Saxon monks who supported his stance at Whitby. After a short period on Iona, Colman and his followers set sail to the west of Ireland and founded a monastery on the island of Inishbofin off the Mayo coast. The Irish monks, delighted to be home, journeyed to visit their kinsmen on the mainland, while their industrious Saxon brothers tilled the soil and adhered to a stricter monastic life. Returning in the autumn, the Irish consumed much of the fruits of the labours of their Saxon brothers. Tensions arose, forcing Colman to take the Saxon monks onto the mainland. The Venerable Bede of Jarrow, known as the father of English history, writing in 731, tells us,
Colman, after searching near and far, discovered a site suitable for a monastery on the Irish mainland, a place which the native Irish called Mayo. Here he bought a small tract of land from the nobleman who owned the land, who then made it a condition of sale that the monks should pray for him. So a monastery was promptly built with the help of the nobleman and all the neighbours, and Colman established the English monks there, leaving the Irish on the original island.
The foundation at Mayo, meaning Plain of the Yew Trees, was unique in Irish terms, as it was an independent Anglo-Saxon foundation inhabited by Saxon monks. Colman appointed Gerald, son of a Saxon prince, as first abbot and bishop of Mayo. The Book of Leinster mentions
3,300 with Bishop Gerald and 50 saints of Lunya of Connacht occupy Mayo na Saxon.
As the monastery flourished, it became known throughout the Christian world as Mayo of the Saxons. It became a recognised centre of learning and attracted students from Britain and Europe. Alcuin of York, a noted churchman and advisor to the French Emperor Charlemagne, wrote a number of letters to the monks at Mayo between 780 and 797. In one of his letters, Alcuin addressed them,
To the beloved fathers in Christ of the Church of Mayo, Alcuin, a humble deacon, sends greetings.
And he praises the monks for their dedication to the monastic way of life and teaching.
For I know your service abroad ranks high with Christ our God. For it was for his name you left your own country to live abroad. For a great light of knowledge is spread from you to various parts of our country, and the progress of many clearly means a rich reward for you in the future.
This unique community at Mayo Abbey fostered the mingling of Anglo-Saxon and Celtic traditions with its extensive contacts with centres in Scotland, Northumbria and Europe. During the Viking raids in Ireland, the monastery at Mayo was plundered and the monks murdered. However, a religious community continued to flourish throughout these troubled times. Events in Mayo during the 9th, 10th and 11th centuries are mentioned extensively in the various medieval annals, including the Annals of the Four Masters, the Annals of Ulster, the Annals of Lough Kay and the Book of Ballymoe. The Annals of Ulster record the building of a stone basilica in Mayo for the use of pilgrims in 1110. Mayo Abbey was still inhabited by Saxon monks. In 1152, Mayo Abbey became the centre of the Diocese of Mayo, which covers that part of Mayo, now part of the Diocese of Tuam. At that time, Mayo lay in the Kingdom of Connacht, ruled by the O'Connors. In 1176, Donal O'Connor, brother of Rory O'Connor, last High King of Ireland, died and is buried there. This family also carried out the rebuilding of the church. In the 12th century, the area was further settled with the coming of the Normans, who established a town here. This Norman influence pervades the area and is evidenced by the ruins of the large castle of Maurice de Prendergast at Bryse and a number of contemporary fortified strongholds and moated sites. In early medieval times, Mayo Abbey is listed as one of a number of thriving market towns. At the end of the 14th century, the Canons Regular of St. Augustine established an Augustinian abbey. The abbey was built within the monastic site and was similar to the nearby Augustinian abbey at Ballintubber. Malachy was appointed first abbot of Mayo in 1370. In 1380, the papal records describe the abbey at Mayo as having an abbot and 6 monks. About the same time, Parliament in London decreed that no Irishmen were allowed to become monks at Mayo. In 1411, the Pope approved the order granted 40 years earlier and granted an indulgence to anyone who helped in the completion of the building of the abbey. During the composition of Connacht in 1585, Mayo Abbey was recognised as being the most prominent settlement in the area, and this resulted in its name being given to County Mayo. Mayo Abbey continued to be an important religious centre until the 16th century, when, with the coming of the Protestant Reformation, all large abbeys and religious houses throughout Ireland were disbanded and their communities dispersed. In 1617, the abbey was sacked and its lands were confiscated by the Crown. There were 14 bishops of Mayo, coming from places as far afield as Bath and Wells in England and Utrecht in Germany. The most famous bishop was Patrick O'Healy, the first bishop to be executed for the faith in Ireland. He was born in Dromahair, County Leitrim, educated in Spain and appointed to the Diocese of Mayo by Pope Gregory in 1576. Accompanied by Father Con O'Rourke, he travelled to Ireland to take possession of his seat, but was captured by Elizabethan forces upon his arrival in Limerick. Both he and Father O'Rourke were hanged in Kilmallock on the 13th of August, 1579. The Diocese of Mayo was finally merged with Tuam in 1631. In common with the rest of the country, the penal code that imposed social, cultural and religious restrictions on Catholics was met with covert resistance by Mayo Abbey parishioners. During penal times, Mass continued to be celebrated in the ruined abbey. The 18th century saw the rise of the Protestant landowning class throughout Ireland. In 1811, a Church of Ireland chapel was opened to serve the local Protestant population, which in 1834 numbered 37. In 1867, the Church of Ireland parish was merged with Claremorris and Crossboyne. In 1826, a meeting was held with a view to building a new church. Aeneas MacDonald, a leader of the Catholic Emancipation Movement and editor of the Dublin Chronicle newspaper, addressed the meeting. In his speech, he described the place of worship in Mayo Abbey as follows.
The place now used alternatively for school and religious worship is a low thatched house situated in the midst of the venerable ruins, with a damp earthen floor, 2 small windows and a shattered door, which in the weekdays is unhinged and converted into a table for the use of scholars.
In 1845, on the eve of the Great Famine, which saw the population of Mayo Abbey halved, and under circumstances of extraordinary privation and sacrifice, a new church was built and dedicated to St. Colman. In 1858, it is recorded in the Freeman's Journal that over 1,800 people attended the parish mission in Mayo Abbey. This church served the community as a place of worship until 1978, when a modern church was built on a new site in the village. This is the unique story of Mayo Abbey.